Alrighty, y'all, let's get started pretty quick here. We're starting on chapter 23.2 or 23-2, whatever you prefer. It's the evolution of seeds. The first vascular plants lacked seeds. They didn't have them. They used a film of water and swimming sperm instead. It just worked for them. So let's talk about the first seed plants. They were gymnosperms. A gymnosperm is a seed that does not develop within a fruit. The Greek translation for that is naked seed. Gymno being naked, seed being sperm, okay? So when we look at this guy, right, you can break that into two parts. Often when we're talking about gymnosperms, we're talking about the pine trees like in the background, but there are several other types that we'll talk about in a little bit. Angiosperms, they developed from gymnosperms, so they came after, right? Angiosperm is when a seed develops within a fruit. So it's an organism where a seed, or a plant, not necessarily any organism, but a plant where a seed develops within a fruit. The Greek translation here is case seed. So the seed is encased in something, and this doesn't always necessarily mean like a peach or a plum or a fruit tree, right? There are other fruit trees or trees that bear fruit that we just don't consider it fruit. Like those weird little berries that grow on some pine bushes. They're not fruit bushes. They're just, I guess they're not even pine bushes. They're little bush things. Anyway, point is, they develop a fruit. They're an angiosperm. Okay. Oh, and what did the conifer say during the night? I pine for sunshine. I love it. Okay. So here is where this gets a little tricky just because of all of the big M words that you haven't heard before. So I'm just going to say them all so that you can be confused for 30 seconds and then we'll clarify. So it's microgametophyte, microspore, megagametophyte, and megaspore. Megagametophyte is weird to say. Say it 2 or 3 times just because of the weird GA in the middle. It is megagametophyte. Okay, anyway. Excuse me. Let's talk about the microgametophyte first. This guy produces sperm, okay? The microspore is the spore that produces the microgametophyte. So the microspore produces the microgametophyte, which produces sperm, okay? Then let's look at the megas. Megagametophyte produces eggs, okay? Megaspore produces the megagametophyte, okay? To help you with this, if you kind of think about it, when we break these words apart, let's talk about the gametophytes. Let's talk about the gametophytes first. So gametophytes produce egg and sperm. Okay, so gamete, think about gamete. We talked about gamete, we're talking about sex cells, we're talking about sperm and egg, okay? So megagametophyte has that gamete in it. Microgametophyte has that gamete in it. So we are producing egg and sperm, okay? Spores produce the gametophytes, okay? So that's the back half of these words. The front half of these words, mega and micro. So micro are male, if that helps. Micro produce sperm, okay? Mega go along with eggs. They go along with a female. So megagametophyte and megaspore are both female. Microgametophyte and microspore are both male. Okay, I hope that helps you out. I hope that helps you separate them. So pollen grain is our next topic here. A pollen grain consists of 4 haploid cells surrounded by a thick protective wall. So think of a pollen grain as just kind of like an encased rubber ball or something like that with haploid cells in there, okay? It contains a microgametophyte, so the male portion that we were talking about, that is developed from a microspore. So it has one of these microgametophytes in there that was developed from a microspore, okay? An ovule is the female side of that. It consists of a megagametophyte that produces eggs. So inside the ovule is a megagametophyte producing eggs, okay? I hope that clarifies things. I know that's a lot of weird words, especially megagametophyte. Okay, moving forward. First set of questions. There's 2 of them to start. There are a total of 5 for this section. What is the difference between a gymnosperm and an angiosperm? Okay. Using the root words, so when we separated them out, root words from the previous slide, what's the difference between a gametophyte and a spore? Okay. And if you're bored, I really loved this joke. Cone and see many. It's see one, and see many. It's one cone and a bunch of cones. Because that was really funny. All right, move forward. Excuse me. Okay, we are good. So let's talk about pollination. Pollination is the transport of pollen grains from a plant's male reproductive structures to a female reproductive structure of the same species. So as long as it's the same species, it's fine. That means it could be on the same plant. It could even be on the same flower. This can happen, depending on the species of plant. So we've got that pollination process. So this is kind of the process, the pollen going from the anther to the top of the stigma here. We'll talk more about flower parts in the next one. Don't panic. Okay, so we've got these pollen parts kind of coming over here, the germinated pollen grain, pressing down its pollen tube. So there's this kind of confusion sometimes about how pollen works. So pollen itself, these little balls of pollen, don't go all the way down into the ovary. They sit on the outside and they grow what's called a pollen tube. The pollen tube grows pollen tube to ovule, and it enables sperm to pass to egg. So essentially, this tube, think of it like a weird straw, right? The sperm cells travel through the tube all the way to the egg, so that the sperm can fertilize the egg. So these pollen grains grow these tubes all the way down so that they can effectively pollinate the flower, right? Okay. In my heart, I want to ask if that makes sense, but I know that you can only hear me, so let's keep going. Conifers. These guys are gymnosperms that produce seeds and cones. I've talked about the term conifer before. I've used it previously. This is the official definition. It's a gymnosperm that produces seeds and cones. There are other common gymnosperms called cycads. These guys are relatively common. They're like palm trees and like palm type things. Those are cycads. Okay, they're also gymnosperms. Ginkgo is the least common gymnosperm with only one species left. It's called the maidenhair tree. Now the ginkgo was super common way back in the Jurassic era. There were tons and tons of them. All that's left now is this maidenhair tree. You can see kind of how the leaves come straight off of these really long kind of individual branches that don't look like they branch a whole lot. They're just kind of long and straight and kind of weird. It was called the maidenhair tree. You can really see the coloration in the leaves in the fall, how they kind of turned very yellow, and they kind of look like if you were to paste them onto a cartoon character, it would look like hair. So this guy is the last ginkgo tree that's common still, that we have, that we know of. Okay. Moving forward. Excuse me. Seeds. I feel like this should be pretty straightforward. You've heard of seed before. A seed is just a plant embryo surrounded by a protective coat. The seed coat being the hard cover of the seed. So here is a pretty simple bean diagram. We've got the outside little layer here. This guy's the seed coat. We've got the cotyledon, which is a seed leaf. The epicotyl will become the shoot and leaves of the stem. The hypocotyl will be the connection between the cotyledon and the radicle being the baby root. When we talk about beans, which isn't quite yet, we're mostly going to focus on seed coat, cotyledon, and radicle. We're not going to be talking about the difference between the epicotyl and the hypocotyl. It's not super important. Fun fact for you though, bean seeds are dicots, which means they have two halves. Di meaning two. So this would only be a half of this bean. When you split a bean down the middle, they kind of fold apart. This is pretty easy to see if you have a bean on hand. Go ahead and like crack it open. You can kind of see the middle. You'll actually probably see some radicle in there as well, depending on how old that bean is, which is pretty cool. Okay, moving forward. 3, 4, and 5, the last of the questions. Describe how a pollen tube works. What is the only living non-conifer gymnosperm? Well, it's a non-conifer, but it's also a non-cycad. You know which plant I'm looking for. It's the one I talked about for way too long. Okay. Draw a diagram of a bean seed. There's an excellent one on your book on page 534. Flip to that page. Just kind of diagram that guy out. It'll help you remember the basic parts of that bean. And I gotta say, this was definitely me. I ate an apple seed one time. I was not 7, I was 5. And I cried for like 20 minutes because my very, very mean person that I thought was a friend kept telling me that an entire tree was going to grow in my stomach and that I was going to die. I, I didn't like the kid. They were evil. Anyway, very upset. Move forward. Not moving forward. Guess it's the end of 23 too. You got this. I know you do. Please let me know if you have any questions about the video, about whatever you need. Okay? You got this, guys. Bye.